Welcome to episode 674 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. You feeling like you have a CES hangover a little bit?
There's still a lot of CES stuff here to talk about. Yeah. What a show. Did you have a good time while you were there?
Yeah, it was an amazing show. And interestingly enough, I wasn't as exhausted as I normally get. Probably because I've been walking a lot more these days. So not as much walking out of the ordinary for me. So that's good.
Right. Did you stay healthy?
I did. In fact, I had a sinus infection before I went. So I was on antibiotics and doctor said, yeah, you're fine. You're not contagious. Go and let me know if you get worse. And in fact, I didn't. I got better. And by the end of the show, I came back and I'm good. So yay.
Amazing. That's a CES miracle right there.
Right? Right.
All right. Well, we do have a ton of stuff to talk about this week. There is new stuff that's not from CES. We've got a Hulu with Live TV merger with Fubo that kind of came out of nowhere. And then maybe directly, but not directly related, the death of Venu Sports immediately thereafter. You're going to be able to watch the Super Bowl in 4K with streaming. Sonos, well... Kind of a house cleaning over there. Sort of surprise announcement of the Nintendo Switch 2. And then some follow-up gaming news from CES that we didn't cover last week. The new Nvidia 5000 series RTX cards and some new gaming handhelds from Lenovo Legion and from Acer. We also have feedback this week. One of these was email. Our email address is entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com. The other one was through Blue Sky, and all of our contact information, we'll go over it at the end of the show. It's also in the show notes. Just head on over to www.thedigitalmediazone.com to get everything. Yep. So, yeah.
First one is here from longtime listener Joe. And Joe says, hello, Josh and Richard. Happy CES. I am looking forward to finding out how much Entertainment 2.0 will cost me this year when I feel the need to get something you talk about. Not a bad thing, no. He says. He says, I still have a few micro USB devices that I use that get unplugged from the charger, such as headphones, an older Xbox controller, power banks, and an older Kindle and such. I hate making sure which side is up. So I bought a magnetic adapter for these items to make my life easy. I get the cable close and the items are charging. So he left a link to an Amazon product that I have never heard of before. It is the Terrasaco magnetic charging cable. And this particular package is a 6-pack of USB cables that terminate in a magnetic connection that then connects to one of 12. You get 4 USB-C, 4 micro USB, and 4 old 8-pin iPhone connector type things that you can then just connect magnetically, and you can keep them in your device. That's the thing that's so cool about this. You just keep that little charger in your device and get your magnetic charging cable close to it, and boom, kind of works like a MagSafe charger would for iOS and Mac devices. Really cool. I love this thing. I might have to get one.
It's pretty great if you do have to deal with some of those annoying old connections. Micro USB probably being the worst one.
Yeah.
I don't need this for USB-C. USB-C just connects. But even the ones that you don't have to flip in the right direction, like just kind of dangling a magnetic cable near the charger that's kind of sticking out of your device is kind of great.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And when you say sticking out of the device, it's really just this little disc that you would see at the end of the device where at the end of the male plug that goes into that device. So it's not like it's a big obtrusion or anything. This package, for all of what I just described, is less than $20. So even if you only needed the ones for micro USB, which is all I would really want it for, it's still worth it.
Yeah, this does seem very much worth it especially if you've got that many micro USB devices hanging around.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we also got a message from Steve on Blue Sky. Yep, that's where the cool kids are nowadays, Richard. Richard's there too. Steve said that he enjoyed the CES podcast, and for playback of 4K content from a Plex server, so we talked a little bit last week about how 4K playback from Richard's Plex server didn't always work all that great.
Not working. It used to.
Yeah. And he's blaming the client devices, not Richard's Plex server. He said, take a look at using Infuse 8 from Firecore. Running the app on he's running the app on Apple TVs and iPads, and 4K playback with HDR support is painless, and scrubbing, so like when you're fast forward and rewinding, is quick.
Yeah, this is intriguing. I used to use Infuse. Actually, I've gone back and forth using Infuse, and it's a subscription product because you really need the pro version to get the most benefits out of it. And of course, that annoys me. But regardless, it's a nice front end for Plex. It gives you access to all your Plex stuff. It is a simplified version. So therefore, it's not as, I don't even know if the right word is easy. The right word might even be possible to get at everything the way that Plex organizes it for you. But it's a nice, clean experience. I didn't realize that it uses a different player that might actually talk with the Plex server better, which is kind of fascinating to me. So maybe I'll fire this up again. Maybe I'll subscribe to a trial version with a different email address and see if it makes any difference. So, Steve, thanks for the recommendation. I'll give this a try.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Steve. All right, well, let's jump into our news for this week. And we typically start with the video/TV stuff, so we're going to do that again. And we're going to start with the news that Disney, who owns Hulu, decided to merge their Hulu with Live TV service with Fubo. So they're essentially buying Fubo, which started back in 2015, I believe it was, primarily as a sports live streaming service. And now it's expanded over the years. It's way more than just sports channels at this point. It's a full-on competitor to things like Hulu plus Live TV and YouTube TV. But you know, the cynical side of us said, well, they're clearly buying Fubo because Fubo is the company that sued to stop Venu Sports, the service that Disney tried making to pair up ESPN and all of their sports properties with everything that Max owns and TNT and Fox and all of these other guys to make one super sports streaming network. And Fubo was like, we're going to go out of business if this thing happens.
And so took them to court.
Right. And so they took them to court. The court said, yeah, this can't happen just yet. And so the courts blocked it back in September, right before it was expected to launch. And it hasn't launched yet because of that.
Right.
And so at the beginning of January, Disney's like, okay, we're buying Fubo. And it looked like the main idea here was, well, we'll buy Fubo, and then they'll probably drop their lawsuit against Venu Sports. And surprise, they did. Shocking, right? So they did. But things get a little bit weirder now because Fubo leadership, the people that started that company, they're the ones that are going to run this combined business between Fubo and Hulu with live TV. And the thing, I've read a bunch of different articles about this, Richard. There doesn't seem to be consistent reporting on what the actual outcome would be here. Whether Hulu plus live TV will continue as its own service and Fubo will continue as its own service, or if they will join together into one service. Do you feel like you got a clear answer from any of the research you did?
I was under the impression that this was going to become part of the Hulu Live exclusively. I was thinking that Fubo itself wasn't going to exist, but you're right. I don't think they explicitly stated that. So maybe that's a detail they're still working out. And that could technically still be possible because, as I understand it, this isn't a full acquisition so much as a majority ownership.
That's right. That is what it is, which does leave that door open for Fubo to continue to exist. These mergers take forever. Like they said, this could be an 18-month merger before it completes. It doesn't seem like it should friggin' take that long. Like, we're talking the amount of time it took Microsoft to acquire Activision Blizzard. That seems like a lot. But
yeah, but remember, one of the things that they have to do, and this is particularly true with anyone that is a carrier of sorts, is they need to sort out, okay, well, where do we have overlap? Right? There's a possibility that Disney, because of acquiring this interest in Fubo, may need to discard, like get rid of some things they have that might actually compete with this new thing they're going to offer. Certainly they would be, aggregating it. They're not going to offer two versions of the same channel, and there probably are some sports channel and other channel overlaps. So they have to figure that all out. And there's a bunch of licensing deals there that would need to either expire or be rewritten. So it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So where does that leave Venu Sports? Well, within a week of this announcement of the merger, not everything exactly cleared up with Venu, because there were still satellite providers who were pretty ticked off about Venu Sports continuing to exist with a potential monopoly interest thing going on there. But also some other things changed. Fox Sports, their sports ownership and streaming rights are dwindling. TNT lost the NBA. So like a lot of the main partners that were kind of key to this Venu Sports thing, their interest in this is, or their ability to contribute to this new sports network has been declining. And at the end of the day, everyone just decided to call it quits. So while we thought that Disney was buying Fubo so that Venu Sports could live, instead, Venu Sports still dies. And they didn't give super clear reasons for it. The quote from the official announcement was, "After careful consideration, we have collectively agreed to discontinue the Venu Sports joint venture and not launch the streaming service. In an ever-changing marketplace, we determined that it was best to meet the evolving demands of sports fans by focusing on existing products and distribution channels." So they're giving up. And the ability for you to continue to watch live sports will continue to be a disjointed mess. Good luck.
Right. Well, and that's the thing that's unfortunate here. While this was going to be problematic for other providers, ultimately this was going to be good for consumers by giving you largely, not entirely, but largely one place to go for most stuff. So Instead, they opted to, I would argue, squirm out of the remaining legal complications.
Yeah, that is probably the best way to describe this. So, goodbye, Venu. We joke at services like when CNN launched a live streaming service that it barely lasted a week. Venu never even really lived. Goodbye, Venu. All right. Well, let's move on to what I think is much cooler and much easier to discuss news. For, I believe, the first time ever, you are going to be able to live stream the Super Bowl in 4K for free. And that's pretty great. Like, you might be thinking, who cares? Like, I can already watch the Super Bowl for free. It's on Fox over the air. Yes, that's true. And that's how I would have probably done it in the past also. But fewer and fewer people have antennas nowadays. Right. Like, we're kind of the weirdos for using antennas to watch over-the-air TV at this point. Most people are getting it through a streaming service. And so just being able to watch it free on streaming is a pretty big deal. But to get it free in 4K is awesome. And the way that it's happening is through Tubi, because Fox has the rights for the Super Bowl this year, and Fox owns Tubi. Tubi is Fox's, we call these fast channels, free ad-supported television networks. And so there will be pre-Super Bowl coverage the day of, and actually going back even into late January. They'll have all sorts of coverage on their NFL channel, and then, of course, the big game live in 4K on February 9th. You watch the Super Bowl at least, right, Richard?
Sometimes. I used to watch it more regularly for the ads, and these days you can just, I don't know, go to YouTube and watch the ads individually. You don't have to wait for them to come on. So,
what about the halftime show?
Yeah, I can usually catch that on YouTube too. So,
well, if you do tune in this year, you are a YouTube TV subscriber. Would you use YouTube TV or would you use Tubi?
I'm probably not going to tune in.
I'm going to try Tubi. I will for sure be watching. I expect to be watching my Detroit Lions in that game. And yeah, if I can watch this for free in 4K, yes, I'm going to go that route. I have more confidence in my internet connection's ability to stream this than I do in my antenna's ability to pull this in. Fox can kind of be wonky for me sometimes. So hopefully Tubi holds up under the load. That's the risk of this. So like if watching the Super Bowl is super mega ultra important to you, have a backup plan.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the things that's always plaguing some new premiere that hasn't been on streaming before. So I would just expect that. I would expect that we're going to have some complications here.
Yeah, probably. All right, Richard, let's dig into the audio news. You want to take this?
Let's. Do I? Okay. So we've been talking about Sonos and how badly they've been screwing up for the last year or so. And finally, their CEO is leaving the organization. Very quietly, they announced that Patrick Spence was let go last weekend. But that's not where it ends. They have also let go of their chief product officer, Maxime Bouvat-Merlin. They have also let go of their chief commerce officer. 3 C's gone out of the organization. So they are doing a major reorganization to get things back on track. I mean, we had the massive failure with the app update last year. They released the headphones that nobody really wanted, and that was the reason that they pushed the app update out before it was ready to go. everybody that seems to be accountable for that is kind of on the chopping block right now. And I think this is long overdue. This is a wonderful thing. And Durat has my favorite headline: Sonos finally fires its CEO. My subtitle would have been, why did it take so long?
Yeah, I think that really is the question that a lot of people were wondering. Like, did they just not want to fire these people before Christmas? Was that?
I mean, let's not feel too bad for them. So
No.
their old CEO is going to end up with about $2 million out of the deal. So, not too bad there.
And that $2 million doesn't even include all of his stock that's going to vest.
Oh, yeah. So, right. His stock will vest and it's going to be worth millions and millions and millions. Well, not as much as it would have been had, he not run things into the ground as badly as he did. Anyway.
Right. He will be fine. Both of these C's will be fine. Much better off than the 100 people they laid off last fall when the company financials started dropping significantly.
Right, because that was a good move. That was just to satisfy Wall Street, and it frankly didn't. So I don't know. So our hope is that they're going to find a good new CEO. In the meantime, Conrad, who is actually a veteran of the audio and music streaming industry, who has been a member of the board for years, is going to be acting as interim CEO. They are actively looking to find somebody to permanently fill that position. So watch this space.
How about you? Maybe you can be the new CEO.
Yeah, no. So funny you say that. I'm in a chat group where we were talking about that, and someone said, "Hey, maybe you should." Yeah, right. Okay, obviously that's ridiculous, but I have no desires to be CEO of anything. That's just like not in my head. Not the way I work.
You could be the chief product officer.
Okay, that could be interesting.
Except I think they're eliminating that position because they called it redundant, actually.
Well, I think that's redundant because Conrad has such experience in this space. Once they get a CEO in, that CEO may or may not have as much product experience. So I think that's going to depend. I would imagine they would probably at some point, I mean, they're going to need someone heading up product. Maybe whoever was under the product officer gets the opportunity to set things right.
Or you. I'm sure the job
not going to be.
Is
dude, I'm trying to retire in 2 years, not take on new jobs.
But lots of people take new jobs after they retire. Like, imagine the good you could do for the world by being the chief product guy at Sonos.
Imagine.
It'd be great.
It'd be a lot of stress.
But we would still require you to be on Entertainment 2.0. You just wouldn't be able to contribute opinions about Sonos.
Yeah. Or competitors, or people who are in companies on the board. Yeah, no, this is
it'd be totally fine. We can totally make it work. I wouldn't want to prevent you from living out your dreams. Your dreams that you never actually said were your dreams.
Right.
I'm just telling you they are.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, Sonos did lots of weird things over the last year that were questionable. Nintendo did something questionably weird today. They announced a new video game console, a brand new video game console generation, by just posting a 2-minute YouTube video at 8:00 a.m. Eastern time. The video, like I said, it's about 2.5 minutes long. It doesn't even have anybody talking in it. It's basically just a video montage of the new console, showing off some of the features, probably a new game, and then there's some text at the end that clarifies some other kind of important details. It's a really weird way to announce a video game console. There's a lot of people out there saying, well, what else could they do? Everything was getting leaked over the last few weeks. Well, if it's all getting leaked anyway, why rush it? That's kind of my opinion. Like, you should still do things on your own terms, even if some of the stuff is getting leaked. So what do we actually know? Because we don't know everything. We know that it is, as expected, it is the Nintendo Switch 2, and it looks a lot like the Nintendo Switch that most of you already have in your houses right now, because the Nintendo Switch is the second all-time best-selling video game console of all time, second only to the Nintendo DS. So it looks like a Switch, except it's bigger, which is good. It has bigger Joy-Cons on it, which is good. These feel like these look like Joy-Cons that are made for adults instead of toddlers, like the original Joy-Cons. They attach differently, but we're not entirely sure how. The rumors say that there are probably magnets involved. It has a much better, more stable looking kickstand. Frankly, it looks like they kind of stole the kickstand idea from the Surface Pro devices, and that's Smart. A good thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally a good idea, because the original Switch, that kickstand did not inspire confidence. It also, the video appeared to show a new Mario Kart game.
Shocking.
It friggin' better have a new Mario Kart game, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that has been the only Mario Kart on the Nintendo Switch, was basically just a deluxe version of Mario Kart from the Wii U. So, like, we've been playing essentially a 10-year-old Mario Kart game for all of this time. I think we're due for a new Mario Kart. They didn't show any other games or anything like that. They did not say a price. They did not say a launch date. The only release window that we got was it's coming in 2025. None of that is surprising. We should get all of the rest of the details on April 2nd, when they are hosting what will probably be a much bigger Nintendo Direct. So I'm excited. I'm kind of excited. I like the Switch. It's obviously a great system. I have one. I don't play it very much. And while this sounds better in basically every way over the original Switch, I barely play my current Switch. So why do I need the Switch 2?
So you don't think you'll upgrade?
I don't know. You know what would make me upgrade? You know, there's a lot of talk in the Xbox space about how Xbox is continuing to publish games on other platforms. Mm-hmm. Indiana Jones, their big new game that launched last month, it's a timed exclusive. It's coming to PlayStation later this spring. There are now rumors that Halo is going to go to PlayStation and Switch. Call of Duty is absolutely going to Switch and is obviously already on PlayStation. If Xbox were to say, you know what, we're just going to start publishing pretty much all of our games cross-platform. They'll be on PlayStation, they'll be on Switch too. And we're going to sell them using Xbox Play Anywhere, meaning you buy it at one place and you can play it. Currently, this only works on Xbox and Windows PCs. If that would also work on a Switch, yes, I would buy a Switch, because then I would have a console that can play Mario games and Xbox games that I could take on an airplane.
Right.
I don't think that's super likely to happen, because I don't know how they make the pricing and all of that work when you're doing buy on one console and it plays on all of them. But it would be the dream, and if it happened, then I would for sure buy a Switch 2. But it's probably not going to happen. Okay, so that's the latest gaming news that wasn't at CES. The rest of this is kind of catching you up on things that you might have missed at CES. So the one thing that you almost definitely didn't miss, it was one of the biggest stories of CES, especially if you care at all about gaming or kind of actual AI stuff instead of all of the fake AI that was in pretty much everything else. at CES, and that would be the new video cards from Nvidia. They announced a brand new generation of video cards, the 5000 series, and announced basically the entire series all at once, which they don't always do. There's a 5070, a 5070 Ti, a 5080, and a 5090. And they'll all be coming out over the next few months, but starting in March. So pricing really matters on these things. Let's start at the top end, the 5090 series. This card is going to set you back $2,000. That's for a video card, folks. That's not a gaming console. That's not a whole computer. That is a single video card.
The card.
Just the card.
The card. Yeah. So that's a bump in price.
It is.
$100 bump price in the last generation. And I want to call out these price differences because they're weird.
They are weird. So the top end gets way more expensive, but also, like, you have to be super hardcore to be buying a 90 series GPU at this point. You know, most people are getting like the 70s and 80s, not the 90s. Okay, so, all right, the 5090's $2,000. How about the 5080? It's half the price. It's practically a deal, Richard, at $1,000.
Practically. And that's cheaper than the last generation, which is
weird. It is $200 less than the 4080 launched at. That's weird. I don't really get it. I don't follow this stuff well enough to be able to tell you, oh, well, it's because blah, blah, who cares? It's cheaper. Yay. And then there's the 5070 Ti and the 5070. They don't normally launch the Ti series at the same time as the main series. The Ti's typically come a year later or something like that. For whatever reason, just with the 5070, they're launching a Ti at the same time. And the only real difference between the 70 and the 70 Ti is how much RAM it includes. The 5070 has 12 gigs of onboard RAM, and the 5070 Ti has 16 gigs of onboard RAM. By the way, that 5090 video card, Richard, has 32 gigabytes of RAM. The video card has 32 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah, I think that's more than is in the computer that I'm using right now.
Right. It is twice the RAM in the computer that I'm using right now. It's, but especially if you're actually doing AI stuff, like you can load an entire large language model into RAM and it's crazy fast DDR7 RAM. So that is part of the reason why these things are so expensive. Okay. So the 5070 Ti, $750, the 5070, $550, and these also cost less, only $50, but less than the previous generation. So all of them are less except for the 5090. It's weird, like Richard said, but yay, I guess.
Yeah. And hey, if anyone's going out and planning to get that $2,000 new 5090 when it shipped, let us know.
Right.
We're just curious.
Yeah, I'm sure we have listeners that are going to be buying them, but wow. So those are cool and all of that, and the pricing is interesting. But of course, what matters is how much better do they perform than the previous generation. And their big headline was, not only do these outperform the previous generation of cards, they really outperform the previous generation. They put in big, bold print on their slides, the 5070, so this is the lowest end card launching here, the 5070 will deliver 4090 performance for $550. That 4090 card that we said was $1,600 last generation, same performance from a $550 card. And everybody must be thinking, well, awesome, I'll get the $570 card and it'll be amazing. Or, like, wow, how much better must the 5090 and all of these other cards be? There's kind of a huge caveat here, though, because they're not just talking, well, it can render pixels, like just straight up rendering pixels as fast as a 4090. That is not what it's doing. They have a new version of their DLSS technology, which is essentially AI frame generation, where the video card is able to analyze the frame that is being generated by the game that you're playing and then use AI. Well, previous versions of this would generate an extra frame. This new version of DLSS can generate up to 3 frames, so it's essentially 4 frames for the price of 1. And so you do get more frames per second out of these new cards. Is that actually good? It kind of depends. Like, I hate giving an answer like it depends, but it absolutely depends on the type of game you're playing, because it can introduce extra latency because they're not real frames. And it can just feel weird. And we haven't really gotten a chance to try out how weird it might feel if it's generating 3 extra frames for every real one. So we're all going to have to wait and see until these things actually start shipping and we get actual hands-on reviews. I have no doubt they will be better cards. They will for sure be better cards. But it feels pretty disingenuous to say that you're actually getting 4090 performance from a 5070. But we'll see what the reviewers tell us in March-ish or whenever these actually go on sale.
All right.
Yeah. So let's dig into some handhelds. And one of these, barely a handheld. First, the one that's definitely a handheld, Lenovo. We talked about this a little bit before CES even happened. Lenovo announced that they were going to be having an event at CES where they would have someone from Steam on stage with them and someone from Microsoft, which sounded very interesting because of all of the handheld gaming PCs that are out there. There's the Steam Deck, which runs SteamOS, and everything else runs Windows, which has its pros and its cons. Well, Lenovo ended up having this event. They announced the new Legion Go S, and they even teased the Legion Go 2. It's not available yet. They're not giving us dates, but they let people play with it and stuff, and it's better. But the real devices here are the Legion Go S. They are smaller than the Legion Go and lower resolution screens, but this kind of makes sense because a lower resolution, smaller screen, easier to generate pixels and frames for it without doing lots of crazy extra frame generation and things like that. So the Legion Go that launched last year with its 8.8-inch screen and detachable controllers and all of that, it had like I said, 8.8-inch screen with a 2560 by 1600 resolution screen running at 144 hertz. Like that's a kick-ass display. But,
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but that's a lot of pixels and a really fast refresh rate on a handheld PC. So this one, it's only 8 inches, still fairly large, and a 1920 by 1200 display running at 120 hertz. That's still good. It's still going to be really good, but it's a little bit more appropriate for the type of processing you're getting in something like this. So, and this smaller device, it has fixed controllers on it. You can't pop them off like a Switch or the previous Legion Go. That's all good. The really interesting thing, though, is, as expected, they are going to ship a version of this thing with SteamOS on it. It will be the first non-Steam developed device to be running SteamOS other than the Steam Deck. But you're going to have to wait. They're not going to ship those until May. But you can buy it with Windows, like really soon. Pre-orders, they say in January. It's January, 18th, 16th. So time's kind of running out on
Soon.
January. Yeah. So, and this thing does have a new generation of the CPU that's been in most of these. It's the Ryzen Z2 Go. Maybe not quite as powerful as like it sounds like roughly the same specs as the previous generation Z1 Extreme processor, but the Z2 Go, like there's going to be a Z2 Extreme, so this will be a lower spec processor than some other devices that will eventually come out later, but it can be paired with up to 32 gigs of RAM and a terabyte of storage. The Windows version, like I said, is coming first. If you want it with that processor, the 32 gigs of RAM and a terabyte of storage, it's going to be $730. That's actually a pretty decent price for what it is, because you're getting more RAM and more storage than most of the other devices available in that spec. But when the SteamOS version comes out, it will come out, it will be available with even lower specs that you might want because you're just trying to save money. So you can get one of those with 16 gigs of RAM. They didn't say the storage. I'm going to guess half a terabyte. And the SteamOS version is going to start at $499. What's interesting is the Windows version with the same specs, $599.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand that at all.
I mean, Windows licenses cost money. Is
not that kind of money.
I mean, they kind of do, but it also makes me wonder if Steam is subsidizing it a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Because if they can really just force you to, not force you, kind of force you into just using Steam to purchase all of your games, then they make way more money off of you than if you're running Windows and buying your games from the Windows Store or the Epic Store or any of the other stores that you could install if you were running Windows. So
yeah, good point.
It is possible that Steam is subsidizing some of that cost. So, but like I said, Windows 1 coming out very soon, SteamOS version coming out in May, and I fully expect other handhelds to be announced relatively soon that are also available with SteamOS because they're making this broadly available. All right, two more handhelds, both from Acer. They've got an 8-inch one. It's following up the 7-inch one that they announced late last year that still isn't out. But the really interesting one, if 8 inches wasn't big enough and 8.8 inches wasn't big enough for you, how about an 11-inch portable handheld gaming console? At that point, it's getting a little bit laughable to call these handheld gaming consoles. That's the size of my iPad, dude.
Well, I was going to say it's an iPad size and people use tablets for gaming too. So
yeah, but it's an iPad with giant game controllers on the side of it too.
Yeah, true.
Now they're detachable and it has a kickstand, which is absolutely what you would want on something that big. It's also got a pretty high-res display, 2560 by 1600, running at 120 hertz. And it's running a different processor. It's the AMD Ryzen 7 8840HS that does have the Radeon 780M graphics. So it's the same graphics GPU built into this chipset, but the CPU is different and probably, I think what that means is it has all of the extra NPU, the AI processing stuff. I don't know that that's super necessary, but maybe if it's an 11-inch display, like maybe you're using this as your laptop too, basically. And if you are going to use it as more of a general purpose computer, then having that more standard like laptop style processor inside of it probably makes sense. So this will come with 16 gigs of RAM. It'll come with up to 2 terabytes of storage, and that's going to start at $1,100. You're not getting the 2 terabytes of storage for $1,100, but we don't know exactly how much it will be. And so that is the Acer Nitro Blaze 11, the Nitro Blaze 8, which has more standard fixed controllers and stuff. That'll be $900. All of these are coming out in quarter 2. The last little bit of news, this one's actually really short, and that is that Xbox announced that they are going to be bringing Xbox game streaming to LG TVs natively in 2025. This is not exactly world-shattering news here. This has been available on Samsung TVs since 2022, and we talked last year about how it came to Amazon Fire TV devices. But it is nice to have the ability to stream Game Pass games straight from the cloud directly to your TV without any other hardware other than, an Xbox controller. That's kind of great. So if you're going to pick up one of those fancy new LG OLEDs, you're going to be able to stream Xbox games to it as long as you have an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription.
I'm kind of surprised this took so long.
Yeah. And why isn't it on all of them?
Well, you of course need to make sure that you can at least have enough processing power to support the app on the device. And some of these TVs are notoriously underpowered. So obviously it's only going to work on certain models. But LG, they're the number one OLED maker, right?
Right.
How did this take 3 years longer than Samsung? I just don't understand.
Right. But also, why not TCL? Why not Hisense? Yeah. Can we just have it everywhere, please? You know where else I would like it? Google TV. It's not there. I can do it from my Android device, but I can't do it from Google TV.
Right. Interesting.
I find that really annoying. So, I don't know. Maybe that'll come later this year. I wonder who's preventing that. If it's already built into an Android app, I don't know why it wouldn't work on a Google TV. But it doesn't.
Yeah.
There's no Xbox app at all on Google TV. Okay, well, that's it for all of our news this week. Richard, let's talk about what's been going on in our entertainment centers.
Yeah, so I finished my trip, and while I was traveling, I finished the second season of Jessica Jones. I had downloaded those episodes and watched them on the plane. Also got back to season 2 of Silo, which is really good. I'm maybe about halfway through now, so looking forward to finishing that because I really want to get back to Severance, which starts tomorrow, I think, and I'm not ready for it. But I did find a good YouTube, what happened in season 1 thing to get me all back up to date. And there's so much that I forgot. So I'm glad I did that. And also, Abbott Elementary is back. They had been on a break during the holidays. They're back now, and they had a fantastic crossover, Philly-themed crossover that was very fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Watched another few episodes of The Bob Newhart Show. And I mentioned that I had canceled my Prime subscription. And so Prime Video is now gone for me. But of course, the Prime app still works. You can still use the Amazon Prime app and get to stuff that's available with ads, like what would previously have been known as freebie content. And so there are some Amazon Prime shows that are available for viewing, but not all the seasons. So, for example, I want to watch Upload. That's a show that's been recommended to me a lot. And seasons 1 and 2 are available through the freebie service. But for 3 and 4, you actually have to have Prime Video. So eventually I'll get to watch them. But I'm so behind in anything and everything. I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. Also been watching a lot of YouTube videos, specifically a bunch of smart home videos. I think I mentioned I met a bunch of influencers and spent some time with a bunch of the smart home influencers at the latest CES event. And so now I'm kind of wanting to check them all out if I wasn't already watching them. So I've been spending a little bit more time in YouTube than usual, which is my typical late night before I go to bed, flip around and see if there's anything that looks interesting. So I'm just kind of redirecting from lasers and 3D content to smart home content for now. So that's it for me. How about you, Josh?
Okay. Well, I'm caught up on Severance. I am ready for that show to come back next week.
Nice.
We are now a little bit behind on Silo. We didn't watch anything last week, and I was very busy last weekend, so we didn't watch Silo. I had actually already finished Severance. I didn't watch any Lions football because I would like to brag again that the Lions had a first round bye for basically the first time ever. But I'll be watching Lions football this coming weekend. On the movie front, I know I said I need to finish Everything Everywhere All at Once, but I just didn't want to deal with that nonsense while I was trying to run on the treadmill. And I discovered that Dune 2 was on Netflix. I thought it was only on Max, but it's also on Netflix. And so I was like, well, let's try Netflix, and Netflix works. And Dune 2 is almost 3 hours long. So that's plenty of long runs to get in while watching that. So I'm still working my way through Dune 2. I will probably give it another watch, like the way that it should be watched, meaning on my OLED with Jen instead of on a 24-inch crappy computer monitor while running. Yeah, because that's been good. And then on the gaming front, played some more Diablo. Just really want the new season to start in about a week. Very excited for that. But we also checked out another fairly new game. And by we, I mean the other guys that I typically play games with. We checked out Marvel Rivals. It's not that unfair to call it an Overwatch clone. It's a team-based hero shooter where all of the different heroes have different abilities, which totally works for Marvel characters. And they've got, I don't know, it's over 20 characters from you to pick from. And it's free to play, so there's really no reason not to try it out if you're interested at all in a hero-based team shooter. And it was good. Like, we weren't doing well. It felt like it maybe is going to take a little bit longer to get used to all of the different classes and abilities and all of that stuff than it seemed like it did for us to do with Overwatch when that came out years ago. But it was fun. And like, if you care about Marvel at all, like, you're probably going to have some characters that you like to play. Like, I'm for sure not picking Iron Man, but there's some X-Men that I can play as. And I like that a lot. So I think we're going to stick with Marvel Rivals. That game has continued to do well in the community, and it seems to be well supported. So I'm liking that, and I think you're probably going to hear more about it in the future. But if you've got tips for a rookie Marvel Rivals guy, send them my way, because still not very good at this game. And lastly, no audiobooks or anything to talk about. I've had a lot of podcasts to catch up on. There's been a lot out of CES and a lot of other things like that. So I'm behind on books, and I started listening to a new podcast. I don't know if you knew this, Richard, but a little over a week ago, they launched an official Severance podcast with Ben Stiller, one of the producers, and Adam Scott, the lead actor from the show. The
protagonist in the story. Cool.
Yeah. And I'm a way bigger fan of the podcast for TV shows that are made by the people who make them instead of the fans who just spend the whole time speculating and kind of ruining the show. So, the two other main podcasts that I've, official podcasts that I have to compare it to would be The Last of Us podcast and Netflix's Three Body Problem podcast. I think this fits right in the middle. It's not quite as good as The Last of Us podcast. That one was so well done. This one's really good, though. Definitely better than the Three Body Problem podcast. If you're watching Severance, go and listen to this podcast. The only thing that I wish they would have done differently is just started a little bit sooner, because they've basically released an episode of the podcast for every episode of season 1. This is brand new.
And dumped it all at once?
Not all at once. They did one episode a day every weekday for the last week.
Poor form.
Yeah, if they would have done this in December, that would have been fine. So I have not listened to all of them. I was I'm running out of time. I have so many other podcasts to listen to. I'm just going to listen to episode 9. And that launched today. It was really good. Check it out. And I'm looking forward. I'm hoping that they're going to do this with every episode of season 2 as it comes out, and that we're not going to have to wait for this. So hopefully tomorrow there's a new podcast episode that launches and a new episode on Apple TV for me to watch.
There will definitely be a new episode on Apple TV.
Yes.
In fact, it'll probably hit tonight at midnight.
Oh, yeah. Are you going to do anything special for it? You're going to have a waffle party?
No waffle parties. No tragically special events going on for that. But I actually will probably download it. Well, actually, that's not going to be necessary. So I'm going to be in North Carolina next week. And so I'll be watching it there, and we get great service there. So I don't really need it on my device. I can just watch it from the Google TV service.
Nice.
Or device down there. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for what's going on in my entertainment center and for all of the news for the show. So if you'd like to get a hold of us, there's a lot of ways you can do that. I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky, but primarily Blue Sky, at Josh Pollard. The website's still on Twitter at DigiMediaZone. Richard is on Blue Sky and Mastodon. He's Richard Gunther on Mastodon and richardgunther.com on Blue Sky.
Yep.
Okay, see, I'm figuring this stuff out.
Yep.
Yeah. So send us messages over there. I have a special request. If you're following us, although I'll make it easy on you, if you're following me, send me a DM on either of those services, Twitter or Blue Sky, wherever you are. Send me a DM. I've got questions for you. This is almost like an informal survey that I want to hear from our most dedicated fans. And if you're still listening at this point, you're probably a pretty dedicated fan of the show. So reach out. I want to chat with you about the show. But that's it for my CTA, I guess, around that. But Richard, you've got another podcast. You got an episode of Home On coming for us?
I do. I've been working on that, and I also was just finishing up working production on the Smart Home Show. So the Smart Home Show will be out maybe not by the time you hear this, because Josh, you tend to turn these around really quick, but on Friday, the Smart Home Show will be out Friday the 16th, and then I expect Home On to be coming out sometime next week.
Nice. Very much looking forward to it. There was a lot of cool smart home news at CES this year.
There was, and we got a bunch of really good floor interviews too, so I'm looking forward to sharing that.
Nice. Well, that is going to do it for episode 674. He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.